Hello guys, welcome to this session. This is a new chapter, the balance of nature. So far in our previous video, we were discussing about this nutrition. We saw the difference between the traditional methods and the modern methods. So we finished up discussing about the nutrition. So today let's move on to this new uh, chapter, that is the balance of nature. We'll start discussing about the natural environment. Uh, we'll start with the concept of natural environment. Natural environment simply is just everything that surrounds us. It's just the one that made up of all living and non-living things that occur naturally on Earth. So everything that occur naturally on Earth that can either be living or non-living is what we call the natural environment. An organism living anywhere in any environment is affected by things around it, such as air, water, animals, plants, microorganisms, stones, rock, soil, clouds, and the sun. So everything around it, uh, an organism, in fact, it makes its natural environment. So everything that surrounds an organism living in like anywhere is what we call the natural environment. Now, it is important to understand that the environment includes all the living things as well as the non-living things. So that's important to note it. Now, let's see various important terms when we're discussing about this natural environment. We'll start with the first one, that is the ecology. Ecology, this is simply the branch of biology that deals with the studying interaction of organisms with the environment. So that study that involves the interaction of organisms with the environment is what we call the ecology. Then there is population. Population, this is the total number of the organisms of the same species that live within a certain area. Take an example, the number of frogs in a pond. That's what we call a population. The total number of organisms that occur within a given place. These organisms are of the same species. The third one is the community. Community, this refers to the sum of the total of all the population of different organisms living in a specific area that is called the habitat. So a community is just the sum of all the total of all the population of different organisms. So when populations are grouped together is what we call the community. They form a community that is the sum of all the various populations of different organisms or different species of organisms living in a specific area that is called the habitat. And what do we mean when we say habitat? Habitat, this is the specific area where an organism is found and adapted. So habitat is just a specific place or area where an organism can be found and adapt to live within such given area. Now, it is appropriate for the certain community. This, we're talking about the habitat. Take an example, an ocean, grassland, and a pond. So this means an habitat is just a given appropriate uh, area for the certain community to exist within given area. Last not least, the ecosystem. Ecosystem, it refers to a natural unit made up of the living and non-living things whose interaction. So ecosystem is just it's a natural unit or a natural component that is made up of living things and non-living things whose they interact to one another. Now let's move on to the various components of the environment. Now there are major two components of the environment. There is biotic, that is the living things or the living component of the environment, and then there is abiotic, that is non-living things or the non-living component of the environment. Now in this video, we'll discuss about the biotic environment, that is the living component of the environment, and later on we discuss about the abiotic environment. Now, the biotic component of the environment. These are the living components in the environment, such as the animals, plants, fungi, and the microorganisms. These organisms, they interact together in a number of ways, and these ways of interaction, they include as follows. So these various ways are major ways in which the biotic components, which are the living components, they interact to one another within a given community or just habitat or area. The first one is the competition. This is what the organisms must compete for the limited resources in struggle for life. So competition is just the competitive nature of the limited resources that are within a place, just for the organisms to struggle just to survive. For an organism to survive in an ecosystem, it must compete with the partner for the limited resources. So that's the competition. The second one is the uh, predation. This is the system in which one organism utilizes the other as food. So this is the other component in whereby the various these organisms, they interact with each other. That is, the predation involves that one organism utilizes the other one as food or as a source of food. The eater is what we call the predator, while the eaten one is what we call a prey, and the number of the predators and the preys regulate each other. So they regulate each other in a matter of the way that they become in a very balanced way, just to conserve the ecosystem. Moving on, uh, the third one is the symbiotic relationship. This is where there is a close relationship or association between the organisms. So this association could take various forms like mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. So the symbiotic relationship is a close relationship or association among the organisms, whereby it could have various forms just to benefit the ones that are involved, like mutualism, whereby it's kind of a relationship whereby both parties or the given organisms, they benefit uh, from one another. The commensalism is maybe is whether is a kind of interaction, a symbiotic relationship whereby one organism benefits and the other one, yes, it doesn't get any benefit from such kind of association. And then there is parasitism, whereby this is kind of a symbiotic relationship whereby the one organism is benefited from the given relationship or association, while the other one is harmed by such kind of association. So those are just some of the forms of the symbiotic relationships. Moving on, the other one is the adaptation. Adaptation, the one that has enabled organisms to survive. They may be anatomically, structurally, physiological, or behavioral. So these are just kinds of the adaptations whereby the organisms, they change or they modify their their forms in terms of the anatomically or structural or physiological or behavior, just to adapt to the given environment so as to survive. Take an example: some organisms are poisonous to their predator, while others develop warming coloration just to survive within the habitat. So that's all I have for this session. I hope that's all clear. Thank you for listening. We've discussed the natural environment. We've started seeing the concept of it. Then we've seen the major components of the natural environment. I've said there is biotic and the abiotic. So we've discussed the biotic, and in our next video, we'll discuss about the abiotic component of the environment. Thank you.